Well, being a woman on Quinnipiac's college campus is a little bit different since the population of women to men is kind of 60-40, but even with that, like being mostly dominated by women, you do still see you can kind of be dominated by men in a sense, like in your classes or in organizations.
I think today that's a time when there's a lot of promise and there's a lot of women who have entered into the university system since the 1970s, largely since the passage of Title IX in 1972, who have really thrived in a college setting. That they're entering all kinds of fields that maybe were not as open to women historically, at least at some level, if not at 50% or more.
Females have to worry a lot more about their appearance just because of how society has kind of trained us to be, how we kind of grew up in the society we live in now. I think they have to spend a lot more time on their appearance, a lot more time kind of worrying about what others think of them and what they do and all their actions.
I like being on a mostly female campus because it's a little bit more comfortable. I know if I was on a campus that was heavily populated by males, it'll be a lot harder to have, group of people to rely on. Like even if you like go out and you don't really know a group of girls, you can always, rely on them for safety reasons. Like I got on the shuttle by myself one time and this girl was like, hey, you can just come by, like walk with us, stick by us. I didn't know them at all. So it's a little bit more comfortable, I would say.
I think that the biggest difference between like all the women's teams and the men's teams is the hockey team. Everybody loves the hockey team, and even the basketball team to an extent. And people just don't seem to care as much about the women's sports. I mean, I think that acro is a little unique because we're a new sport, and for the most part, people like to watch us because it's cool, and we don't have like a male counterpart. I think it's a little less with acro. I don't know, sometimes you hear some stuff because we practice in the rec center, and sometimes you hear some stuff like how we practice in spandex and we don't practice in sports bras, but like we do like compete and practice in like spandex and like spandexy shirts, and sometimes you hear a little bit of like comments about that, but for us it's just like, yeah, well, like we can because we're in shape and we have to because, the nature of our sport is like you don't want anything loose because they can get caught on things and everything, so we all just ignore it. Some people, I don't know, I feel like there are some people on my team who like would say something and be like, no, like we do that for a reason. Like there's a reason for it. Like there's nothing like sexual about it. It's like, it's for our safety,
I think having a solid group of sisters who, the whole purpose of Greek life is a group of women who empower each other, who encourage each other to, get good grades, get involved on campus. Like our main thing is scholarship. So I think that has impacted me a lot because I wouldn't have been involved on campus if it wasn't for my sorority, not just specifically within the sorority, but outside of it, because I do see a lot of sisters who are in leadership roles, and that kind of inspires you to do the same. I think it's because society portrays like the whole Greek life as a woman thing. You have a group of sisters and it's all fun and games, and you dress up, blah blah blah, and then the whole fraternity thing, you have a lot more guys who say, oh, that's not for me, that's kind of like a thing for women. So, yeah, you have a lot more sororities than fraternities on campus, and that could particularly be the reason why, just because it's a society thing that, Greek life is more aimed at women than it is for men, even though I think it's great for both genders. They promote a lot of good things, so.
They ultimately closed the fraternity houses as residential houses, in part because of issues with sexual assault, but also because of hazing and because of the derelict state of those homes.
I do see a lot more cases of the fraternities getting in trouble on campus than the sororities, but I can't say from like my perspective how they're different just because I'm not in that specific organization.
One of them was the source of an underground group which had existed since at least the 1910s called the Wingless Angels, who would go around and I think originally they would pull pranks. But by the time I was there, they were committing hate crimes. The reasons why sorority parties aren't popular on college campuses is because sororities generally don't get the insurance that allows them to serve alcohol. It's very expensive. The liability is very high, and that the fraternities essentially fill that role of people who are willing to take the insurance, right, to get the policies so that they can serve alcohol.
I think the biggest stereotype is the nickname girls gets called slob cats, and I think that's really just indicative of girls going out, getting drunk, hooking up with guys for the party culture.
You know, you have the typical, if she goes out every weekend, if she goes to Toads every weekend, you know, she hooks up with guys and she's a slut or all this kind of, or she's sloppy, or maybe she's, you know, not as smart as everyone else because she likes to go out every weekend, all those kind of stuff I don't really follow.
I could always see the difference when I went to a women's studies sponsored event and when I went to a political science sponsored event. They would serve different food. The women's studies would always have vegetarian and vegan options. You'd go to political science and it would be meat and potatoes. That's what they would serve, and I think that is gendered.
I think Quinnipiac is doing a lot more than it used to try to break those stereotypes, but I think there should be a lot more going on.
I've never really seen Quinnipiac encourage or discourage breaking gender boundaries. I think it's just because I'm a guy on campus and I don't really get that negative atmosphere the oppressive atmosphere that a female might feel on campus, so I wouldn't really know.
Like with feminism and stuff, it's not like anti-men. It's like everyone is equal, and you know, there are things that are good about women and there are things that are good about men, and there are things that suck about women and there are things that suck about men, but it's, you know, it balances itself out.
You know, I think the notion has been in the late 20th century that, of course, you know, co-educational settings are better for women. But there's research that shows that, no, maybe women thrived more in single-sex settings. And sometimes when you're in a coeducational institution, you know, you look at organizations that might be like student government or that sort of thing, and you can still see, you know, men in the top spots in a lot of places. And that's, you know, that's something that happens pretty commonly. There have been some concerns at places like Smith that people who are trans men who transitioned from, you know, being ascribed female identity to male identity are filling leadership positions. And for some people, that is problematic. Well, in the College of Arts and Sciences, it's psychology, and it's some aspect of sociology, probably criminal justice. I think their numbers are fairly high. Biology, I think they have a lot of majors too, because lots of people think that they'll do that and then go to med school. Those seem to be the most popular majors.
Well, in psychology specifically, maybe like clinical psychology, where there's like counseling and stuff like that. You usually think of women in that type of role because there's a lot of talking involved, so the whole stereotype that women like to talk more and they like to deal with people's problems, all that kind of stuff.
majors I associate with girls would kind of tend to be more medicine, science related majors like nursing, health science.
Probably the top majors for women would have included sociology, psychology. I wouldn't say it was political science. Political science, I would say, was maybe 50-50, probably more men than women though.
Oh wow, I like that. I like that.
For guys, I guess I'm a little biased here, game design, but more computer science, computer related majors like computer science, CIS, IDD.
I think since there's like a lot of stereotypes that women are like the more nurturing type, and they usually go into like fields where it deals with you know, handling people, and then men are the more like business savvy kind of things that, you know, it gets ingrained in your head. So, you know, STEM fields I was probably shied away from unconsciously, like subconsciously. And I do love it when I hear women on this campus, like when they tell me, oh, I'm an engineering major, I'm like, oh, that's really awesome, because you don't see a lot of that just because women aren't really encouraged to go into STEM fields.
I think the most evenly spread out that I've seen and personally worked with is the communications school.
Women's studies was very well developed at my university, and lots of people minored or majored in it, at least double majored in it. That's what I did.
No female is a game design major here. I feel like that's a strictly male thing. Well, the whole idea is that a lot of like girl gamers tend to be inferior to male gamers because, you know, they just like pretty colors and like, cute little like dogs and puppies and all that. But that's not really the case. It's really in the industry it's even, but I think how we grew up, it's girls go for pink, boys go for blue, girls go for dolls, boys go for sports. And I feel like because of that, it kind of like bleeds into gaming and the whole industry as a whole, because then the industry kind of focuses on more male-oriented things when it really, female game designers are just as competent and even sometimes even more creative and better than male game designers.
I'm a psychology major, and the majority of my classes is mostly women. Like I have psych classes where it's only like 2 guys in there. I don't think it's a major strictly for women, just because psychology, there's a lot of fields you can do with it. There's many different possibilities you can go into with psychology. So it's open to anyone, but the interests, people who are interested in psychology tend to be women, and I would like to see that change in the future. So going out into New Haven, going to Toads specifically, you know, it's a city, so when you go out with a group of friends, you know, you make sure that the whole night you're by your friends, you know where they are. From what I hear from guy friends, usually they will go out with a group of friends, but they're not usually concerned about, you know, each other's location. They kind of separate or like, you know, divide up from the group a little bit more because they don't have that safety concern. But usually if you're going out with a group of girls, you know, you always want to at least keep in the corner of your eye where your friends are. When you're leaving, you have to make sure that you leave with the same people you came with, stuff like that.
I think the going out culture here is very just, you have to either go to a party, you have to go to Toads, and at least for girls, they have to really worry about like, oh, am I gonna look nice for so-and-so or this and that, so I can, you know, get attention or, you know, like be accepted and have fun. I think that's the biggest part. I think that people here think going out equates to getting drunk and having fun, when that's not really synonymous.
I mean, I don't go out that often, but I mean, I've never heard of any girl being like taken advantage of. Every girl that I've talked to that has had some like hookup situation it was all very, not necessarily planned by her, but you know, she's okay with it. Like it's her decision. And what I think is kind of cool about that, and cool about, I mean, these girls like getting dressed up to go to Toads and wearing questionable clothing. I mean, you know, people can scoff at it all they want, but the reason that these girls are doing this is because it makes them feel good. You know, people can say they do it for guys as much as they want, but like, they do it mostly for themselves because it makes them feel good and it makes them feel confident, which makes them feel like guys like them more, which is okay. Like, you're allowed to do that. And like, girls feeling confident and wanting to put themselves out there, and if they want to hook up with some guy, like, go for it, girl. Like, who cares? You know, like, it's your life, and as long as you're being safe about it.
I think a lot of people come to college with the expectation of this is when you get to drink, you know, this is when you get to do these things. And it's not universities who are necessarily putting that idea out there. They're coming in with that idea.
Yeah, socially, yes, because we do hear a lot of cases about sexual assault, and especially if you're, you know, going out and things of that nature, we do have a lot more to worry about. You know, you always hear your parents tell you, like, you know, don't go out alone, go out with a group of people you trust, make sure you watch your drink. You just safety precautions that we hear more often than guys would normally hear. Like, they can usually do things by themselves, and they have a little bit more freedoms than women do. I do, if I have a drink in my hand, I make sure that I don't leave it anywhere and like pick it back up and drink it, or I make sure that I don't take any drinks from strangers or even guy friends that I know. I'm always careful of who's giving me a drink.
I've been roofied twice. All right, the first time it was probably my second, maybe third weekend of being here. So I was just hanging out with a couple friends there, and a girl comes over and she's like, "Hey, you're so-and-so." And I was like, "No, my name's Derek." And she was like, "Hey, do you want this cup of alcohol?" And so I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" I didn't have any alcohol, so I mean, I was gonna take up this free offer. And before she did it, she turned around, and I'm assuming that's when she slipped me the roofie, but I'm not entirely sure. But I didn't really think too much of it. I was talking to other people at the same time. It was just kind of caught up in the moment. I didn't really think about it, and I didn't really think that it could happen to me. In the span of about 30 minutes, I got incredibly intoxicated, but then this kind of like wave of blackness hit me. And at that point, I just lost my mind. I had no idea what was going on. And the girl the entire time was trying to hook up with me, and I kept pushing her away. I'm like, "No, I have a girlfriend." And she kept trying to come on to me to the point where I had to get physical, punch her in the face. And then I think that kind of like brought me back down to reality just for a couple seconds. I was like, "Oh my God, I hit a girl. How could I do that?" Turned around, ran into a tree, knocked myself out, and that was the end of my night. Well, I mean, worst case, I would have been taken advantage of. Best case, I wouldn't have gotten roofied if I had just been paying attention and just been just a little bit more aware of my surroundings. I'd say 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5.
1 and 4.
I went higher because I didn't really equate it to rape, I equated it to sexual harassment. Less than 1%. Three or 4 out of 10.
Oh, the vast majority.
This is on Title IX? What?
They have risk reduction tips, and I'm pretty sure you can just assume they're pretty much correct.
It sounds like victim blaming and the whole problem with rape culture, which I don't like at all. it shouldn't be risk reduction, it should be, hey, don't do that. Like, hey, don't put people in a position where they have to feel unsafe or they feel like they've been taken advantage of. It shouldn't be aimed at women telling them, hey, don't get raped. I do not like that.
I don't know that a policy like that will stop anything from happening. It's not terrible advice. I don't know that it's effective.
And after that experience, I have.
Sometimes women can get blamed for the amount they drink, so especially in cases like where you have to worry about being sexually assaulted, women do feel like they have to watch how much alcohol they consume, because it's like, oh, well, don't drink too much, or you can get raped or you could get sexually assaulted, where men probably don't have the same worries. They can probably consume as much alcohol as they would like without worrying about blacking out or being in just a state of mind where they feel like they can be taken advantage of.
Well, they're teaching women to avoid being sexually assaulted, but they should also teach men to not sexually assault people.
But then that's tough to do.
They're trying to talk to the potential victims, obviously, right?
Do you know how to spot a sexual aggressor?
No, because statistically, rapes and sexual assault isn't done by a stranger. In most cases, it's done by someone you know, someone you trust. So if it's somebody that you know and you trust, how can you tell if they are an aggressor? Because most of these cases it's perpetuated by your friend or like someone that you're close to.
Like, at least in my state, I wasn't capable of doing that. But at the same time, I've seen plenty of people asking for help and no one helps them.
I mean, it's got to be geared towards women.
So it sounds like they're saying girls do these things, right? But I know that to say, look, you have to go places in groups. You have to look out for one another. You have to be watching. If you feel uncomfortable, you have to get yourself out of a situation. That too is victim blaming. Will I tell my children that anyway? Yes, I will. If there is something you can do to change the outcome of a situation by addressing it early on, the responsibility should not be on the victim. But as a mom of two girls, I would still say that. And I know that's problematic on the one hand, right? But I understand why people still give those tips.
That just makes me think of the time we had to do the sexual and alcohol awareness EDU thing back freshman year when we first came here. It was an interactive experience, essentially, that kind of taught us about the do's and don'ts of alcohol and partying and sex and how to kind of just get accustomed to that on campus, on a college campus.
You did this when?
Freshman year, like the first 2 weeks, I'd say, maybe the first month.
I feel like couldn't be. I feel like they tried to some extent. They make us sit through that thing at the beginning of the year with like the alcohol training and everything. But that's pretty much all you hear about it. Sometimes you see flyers, there are some points when you see things around.
I think universities do that in part to perhaps minimize their liability if they show that they've taken active steps to prevent something. While that might not be the most effective way of explaining anything or teaching people anything about rape, you do have to do it when people don't know each other. You do have to do it early on because that's when people are most at risk for sexual assault. It's in their freshman year.
Well, it was 2 people that came into our chapter. They were going around from chapter to chapter, and I think they handed out a paper or a packet where it listed off numbers to call or places to go or resources that you can get to if you ever felt like you were sexually assaulted, because the number is so high on college campuses and a lot of it does go unreported. So they're trying to make people aware that they can actually report it, or there's a comfortable place on campus for them to at least talk about it, even if they don't want to go ahead and report it or file a case against the person. I don't know the specific number. I think it should be more publicized because a lot of people don't know where to go on this campus. Like, I don't really know specifically where to go.
I know that the health center does a lot. I know that there's clubs like LAST that kind of like, they don't necessarily, I don't think they focus primarily on rape and sexual assault and all that, but they do definitely focus on sexuality.
All I know is the policy, right? And I've talked with the compliance officers, right? So it's now Terry Johnson and Sean Callagher. And I have corresponded with them when I've had students who reported something to me to say that, you know, this appears to be a Title IX issue. It may have been related to sexual assault, or it could have been about harassment, that sort of thing. And from there, they begin a kind of an investigation, right? And I know that they get in touch with the other units on campus, whether that's you know, public safety, Res Life, student counseling. I don't get to see every part of it, right? Like, I can do the reporting and I can correspond with the officers when they're pursuing things. But a lot of it is treated confidentially, so I don't actually have access to all of that stuff. I only have insight into that when it gets reported to me directly, which lots of things would not be reported to me. So I don't know that I can see all of it. What I do know of it is from the written policy.
I have heard of counselors and guidance counselors and just people you can go to talk to kind of just vent or just find help in that, in other alternative ways, not going to the health center.
The one difference, I would say, we had a women's resource center at my college, and most colleges and universities that I know of do and have had one of these things since the 1970s. The Women's Resource Center was the home for the woman who was the Title IX compliance officer.
Definitely just have a bigger, like, just promote bigger awareness through ads, through events on campus, through clubs on campus, and actually devoting time and money to those clubs so more people join and more people kind of just have this general awareness that, well, rape is bad, obviously, sexual harassment is bad, sexual assault is bad, you know, like.
Maybe there does need to be more education about this, and like, just like billboards. I don't know.
They should be putting more like education into like our classes on like what sexual assault is, because a lot of people still don't know what the lines are, what the boundaries are.
So at least in my opinion, or in my best guess, I'd say rape would have to be something entering your body, and sexual harassment would be any form of harassment that can be perceived as sexual.
How to handle cases of sexual assault. So if you have been sexually assaulted, where to go, because I didn't know that until maybe last year when someone came to speak in our sorority. If you have been sexually assaulted, where to go, how the case is usually handled. A lot of people need to be educated on Title IX and those kinds of cases.
A practice on my campus was when you went into any public women's restroom, and I don't know if they were in the men's restrooms or not, they should have been, I don't know if they were, but when you would shut the door to a bathroom stall, there would always be a poster with the rape survivor advocates listed, and that was it's a program for lay people, right, not professionals, to receive some training on sexual assault law and rape kits and what the process is with reporting and going to a hospital and going to the police. And your name would be listed on this poster inside a bathroom stall, and if someone had an issue, they could call you. And there was no obligation to report to the police. The job of the rape survivor advocate was to lay out the options. I think, to get any real justice, your only shot is to go to the police, except that we know lots of people go to the police and don't get any justice.
I think that, you know, society in general is headed in a good direction and in the right direction. It's just like not there yet because nothing can happen overnight. I mean, if you look at how far we've come in the past, you know, couple of decades with women's rights and feminism and stuff, we're like on a good track, but we're not necessarily there yet.